Peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. To everybody who follows me or watches my videos, I can never say thank you enough. I'm so serious. You can do it! But let's get to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, boy.
So this video that I'm going to be showing you guys was a video that I tried to post the other day. It was actually part of the video that I posted, but I had to delete it because it was copyright. But I have done so many reaction videos and I've never got hit with a copyright like that, where it was globally blocked from the world.
What? What the fuck?
So I just thought it was really unusual because, like I said, I have done so many reaction videos and yeah, so. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the first female president of Mexico.
A moment of many firsts for Mexico. The country has elected its first female president and first president with Jewish heritage. Preliminary results from Mexico's Electoral Institute show Claudia Shinbaum as the winner of Sunday's presidential election, winning as much as 60% of the vote. Her administration will face several challenges, though, including security, organized crime, and setting the tone, of course, for the pivotal US-Mexico bilateral relationship.
I didn't know she was Jewish, and everybody's gonna be like, damn, bro, you a hater. You're only gonna bring her up because she's Jewish.
Stop it. Get some help.
But I just find it really interesting with everything going on in the world right now. And for her to be the first president of Mexico and also be Jewish, to me, is just like raising an eyebrow for me. I'm like, you know, why couldn't the first president of Mexico be, you know, Mexican? You feel me? Like, I don't want to sound like ignorant or anything like that, because I know sometimes, you know, race and, you know, your ethnic background has nothing to do with many things, but to be the first president of Mexico and to be Jewish, especially with everything that's going on today, it just, to me, it was just very, very interesting. So I'm pretty sure you guys already seen like the embassy in Mexico that got put on fire and stuff like that. Protesters that got hurt, supposedly police officers got hurt and stuff like that. I don't think anyone died, but it was really crazy. The reason why these protesters were setting fire to the embassy was because of the genocide, specifically what happened in Rafah, you know, when the tents got blown up and kids were dying and people were like being burned alive and stuff like that. But like, again, it's just interesting how all this tension is happening. There's a fire in the embassy in Mexico, and then boom, now a Mexican woman president who was Jewish. It just, to me, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing for Mexico, but I don't know. I really don't know.
What the fuck is this? I don't know.
Mexico is going through a very rough time with violence, you know, with cartels and all that crazy stuff, but I just feel like Mexico right now is in need of someone who can really represent their people and represent what they stand for. So I really hope this president, whose name is Claudia Shinbaum, even her last name made me like fall off my seat. So here's this article that I'm gonna try to go through very quickly. It's titled, "Why Mexico's Center-Right Jewish Community Didn't Vote for Its First Jewish President." And this was on June 5, so yesterday, by Ariela Lopez. After Claudia Shinbaum Pardo emerged victorious in Sunday's election to become Mexico's first female president-elect, many focused on a second milestone. The scientist turned politician will be Mexico's first Jewish president. I think that the main issue in the election, even for the Jewish community, was not her Jewishness, but her political views. Daniel Feinstein, the Dean of Jewish Studies at the Hebraica University in Mexico City, told the Times of Israel. I don't even know if I pronounced Hebraica. I didn't even know that was a word.
No! God, please, no! No!
Shinbaum, who served as head of government of Mexico City from 2018 through 2023, is a member of outgoing President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador's Morena party. Wow, that was a tongue twister.
Oh my God!
She is perceived as largely politically aligned with her predecessor, causing concern among critics of Morena, who fear she will pursue Lopez Obrador's attempted constitutional changes, which could politicize Mexico's Supreme Court and INE, the agency that organizes federal elections, by making them elected bodies by popular vote. Morena is just a few Senate seats short of governing with a supermajority, the margin needed to pass such reform if Shinbaum chooses to do so. So I feel like this is really crucial because for her, with her political views that people don't agree with, they pretty much believe that she's going to change so much policies in Mexico that's only going to cripple them more. So I'm not saying that's the absolute truth, but that's what happens when these people come into presidency, and if they represent a different group that doesn't align with the people that she's representing. She has never publicly presented herself as Jewish, much less represented the Jewish community of Mexico, Sakal said. So yeah, when I was going through some of these articles, they kept on just highlighting how she doesn't really consider herself Jewish, but she's Jewish with a Jewish name, but she keeps trying to like persuade and convince people that she has no ties to the Jewish people or even to the Jewish religion. Mexico boasts around 50,000 Jews, most of whom live in Mexico City, the nation's capital district. The community is tight-knit, with around 95% of children attending Jewish schools, which range from right-wing Orthodox to secular Zionist. What? That is crazy. I didn't even know there was that many Jewish people living in Mexico. Both of Shinbaum's parents were Jewish. Her father's Ashkenazi family migrated to Mexico from Lithuania in the 1920s. Her mother's Sephardic family fled from the Holocaust in Sofia, Bulgaria in the 1940s, and Shinbaum celebrated Jewish holidays with her grandparents. Although Shinbaum has said she is proud of her origins, she characterizes her faith as secular and is not involved in Mexico City's Jewish community. See, again, she's just trying to separate herself from the Jewish community so it doesn't, like, I don't know, make people raise the eyebrow, I guess. So I promise that was the last thing I'm going to talk about in this article. Now let's get to the video. So the video is titled How the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict Began by History, a really cool YouTube channel that I would recommend everybody checking out. They cover some really cool stuff. So Israel, the only Jewish nation in the world, and it didn't really exist until 1948. But many people associate Israel with the ongoing conflict with Palestine. So as soon as like people hear Israel, we automatically just think about the war and all the atrocities that they are doing. I just want to say again, there's a big difference between Israelis and Zionists. So all my videos, I do not bash Jewish people. I bash the Zionists, the illegal occupiers. A violent dispute over land, political control, and resources. And to understand why, we have to look back 1,000 years. So in the documentary, it talks about how both Jews and Muslims have strong religious and cultural ties to the region dating back about 4,000 years to Prophet Abraham, considered the father of the two religions. According to the Old Testament, God told Abraham and his people to settle in a land called Canaan, which is in the approximate region of modern-day Israel, aka Palestine. In 1000 BCE, King Saul established the Israelite monarchy, which continued under King David and his son, Solomon, who built the first Jewish temple in Jerusalem. The historical legacy became part of the Jewish claim to the land of Israel. To me, I just find that really interesting because that's the reason why Israel feels so entitled to that land, is because they feel that because King David and his son Solomon built the first temple in Jerusalem, which was actually destroyed, think about twice. Where that temple is, that's where Al-Aqsa Mosque is, the mosque that a lot of Muslims find holy, and a mosque that they are trying to destroy in order to build their third temple. The historical legacy became part of the Jewish claim to the land of Israel. The land would continue to be conquered and ruled by various groups, including Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Egyptians, Fatimids, Seljuks, Crusaders, Mamelukes, and the Ottomans, who called the region Palestine. So there was a lot of people fighting over that land back then, and it's just, I can only imagine like the bloodshed that was caused. And you know, we're not able to see what happened, but you know, there's a lot of history that tells us the people that were killed, the wars that happened, such as the Crusades, you know, the first crusade, the second crusades. Like, yeah, that land is very important. It would become home to many sites considered sacred by Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. During these transitions, Jews were forced to flee the area, creating a diaspora, a dispersion of people from their homeland. But in Europe, the Jewish diaspora also faced oppression and persecution. So in the 1880s, many Jewish people started immigrating back to the Promised Land in the Ottoman-controlled Palestine. By 1914, there were more than 75,000 Jews in the area. After World War I, Great Britain took control of modern-day Israel, Palestine, and Jordan from the Ottomans. In 1922, the League of Nations approved a British declaration that promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, but it would be more than 2 decades before the promise was fulfilled. So Great Britain, by the way, is a big player in this game, just because I feel like if it wasn't for them, I don't think Israel would have been able to like illegally occupy Palestine the way they illegally occupied it. So yeah, as you guys know, the United Nations and the West and all that, they are the ones who come to all these countries and literally cripple them and literally give all that land to people who they feel can control it the best, and those who can represent the policies that they have and stuff like that. In 1939, World War II broke out. More than 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, with millions more displaced. In 1947, after the war was over, the United Nations decided to partition Palestine into 2 countries, the Jewish state of Israel and the Arab state of Palestine. Israel agreed to the partition, well, of course they did, and borders were drawn for 2 states, but many Arab residents thought that the partition unfairly favored the Jewish population, and violence eventually broke out. On May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was established, with David Ben-Gurion as its prime minister. Almost immediately after the Arab League, a group of surrounding Arab countries rejected the partition and attacked. I don't like that word attacked. I don't think they attacked them. I feel like they're just defending their land, you feel me? Today's media, you see so many word switching. Like when it comes to Israel, like literally killing Palestinians, they don't use the word killing or massacring. They will say stuff like 9-year-old hit by an explosion and her life was taken away. But if it was like a Jewish person in Israel who was killed by a Palestinian, they would say something like Jewish person brutally massacred by Islamic extremist Palestinian group or some weird shit like that. Israel, along with its allies, fought back in more than 9 months of conflict. Its armed forces occupied much of the land designated to become the Arab state of Palestine. Egypt took control of the Gaza Strip. Jordan, then called Transjordan, took control of the West Bank. The original plan for a Palestinian state was scrapped. The historic event was a victory for many Jewish people, but approximately 720,000 Arabs fled or were expelled from their homes, many taking refuge in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, where you currently see the genocide going on, where thousands of Palestinians are killed. This war in Hebrew would be remembered as the War of Independence, and in Arabic as the catastrophe. Tension between Jews and Arab Muslims in the region will continue for decades. Fighting between Israel and its Arab neighbors continued on and off for the next 60 years. In 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization formed to consolidate the power of many small Palestinian groups. In 1967 Six-Day War, Israel, along with its ally support, defeated the armies of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan and gained control of significant territory, crucial for its illegal occupation. So in 1987, following an incident with the Israeli Defense Forces, 4 Palestinian refugees were killed. And supposedly after those 4 Palestinian refugees were killed, the Palestinian militia led an uprising as the First Intifada that resulted into hundreds of deaths. After the First Intifada, Israel and the PLO, which stands for the Palestine Liberation Organization, created a timetable for peace, which was the Oslo Accords. And just to let you guys know what the Oslo Accords is, the Accords was intended to establish a framework for a 2-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to create a partnership for negotiating border disputes. The Accords also established the Palestinian Authority to provide limited self-governance for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. In the 2000s, there was like further peace talks that were unsuccessful when agreements could not be reached on issues like the status of Jerusalem, the rights of refugees, and the increased Jewish settlements, which were settlements that were illegal. And I also talked about like how this kind of reminded me of like the Native Americans, like when, you know, when they were colonized and when, you know, they started seeing white settlers come to their land and start setting up camp. And just imagine being a Native American and seeing that, or just being any indigenous population and just witnessing people from another country or from just another part of the world come and just set up their homes in your land without your permission, you know, taking your resources, killing your people, and all the stuff that comes with it. Later that year, Ariel Sharon, who became Israel's prime minister, visited the Temple Mount, home to Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The act that many Palestinians and Muslims in general all across the world found offensive. Violent protests, riots, attacks, and suicide bombings broke out. The period of violence called the Second Intifada lasted nearly 5 years and marked the end of any peace that had come from the Oslo Accords. The violence ended in 2005 when Israel withdrew from Gaza. In 2006, a militant Sunni Islamist group, Hamas, won the Palestinian legislative elections. Many countries consider Hamas a terrorist group because of their methods, such as carrying out suicide bombings and calling for the destruction of Israel. So yeah, when Hamas made themselves known, they were seen as terrorists and they were identified as terrorists. They were elected democratically by their people to represent their people and to protect their people. So I just find it really crazy that Israel can have an army and have a government that can protect their people, but as soon as Palestine has a group to represent them and to protect them, it becomes an issue. In 2017, Hamas called for the formation of a Palestinian state using the 1967 borders, but it did not formally recognize Israel as a state, and Israel started crying. They're like, I'm not gonna accept it because you don't recognize me as a state. You feel me? They're just a bunch of crybabies, you feel me? As soon as people start seeing them for what they are, they start crying, they start going into media, they start brainwashing people and switching up the narrative and stuff like that. But yeah, sorry for going on that rant. The conflict is complicated by Israelis who continue to illegally occupy Palestine in the West Bank. And also several countries have pushed for peace agreements within these two countries. And, we all see that, there's a lot of indications of Hamas trying to create a peace deal, trying to create a ceasefire. But Israel will not be done until they wipe every single Palestinian off that map. And the last thing I want to talk about before, I put an end to this podcast, there were a lot of Palestinians or a lot of Arabs during these times, in history, where they tried to make, peace. They tried to come to an agreement, but every time they did, Israel would always kill them or assassinate them. I actually did a video about this right after October 7. Actually, let me just show you guys the video right now. There have always been Arabs in the Arab world who wanted to be acknowledged and recognized. So when Palestine was still part of Turkey at the beginning of 1913, there were Arab nationalists who desired to negotiate with Jewish nationalists. Because today we see that they assume that Arabs, we don't want to negotiate. Oh, we're just some barbaric people who just want to kill in the name of God and in the name of religion. When back then there is proof in history that shows that there are Arabs that tried to negotiate with the Jewish people during that time and trying to resemble a better, to resemble a better outcome, instead of just clashing and fighting. But unfortunately, a lot of times when the Arabs wanted to negotiate, they were oftentimes killed or assassinated. That's what it said. That's what it was said right here in the documentary. It was said that the tragedy for the Arabs and the tragedy for Israel has been that whenever they were strong recognitions of those who were prepared to negotiate with Israel, they were intimidated or assassinated. But mostly it was the Arabs that they said were intimidated or assassinated, because the Zionists did not play. They did not want people to come together, and because they really wanted their own state. So they just saw that negotiations was a risk, Moving on. So within the family of the leading rejectionists of the modern time, I think his name was Hajj Amin al-Husseini, whose relative was prepared to talk about peace with Israel, but he was killed in 1946 or 1947. And the leader of the Arab Trade Union was also killed in the late 1940s. So again, we're just seeing that all these people who want to negotiate were being killed or gunned down and whatnot. So indeed, King Abdullah, Hussein's grandfather, was also killed because he wished to make peace with Israel. So this pattern again, you make peace with Israel, you get killed. Doesn't make sense. So yeah, I just feel like that's just very interesting. They make it seem like these Arabs or these Palestinians are like barbaric people who are never going to come into agreement for peace, or people who just don't want to share the land. Palestine accepted Jewish people when they were being brutally massacred in Europe. They accepted them with open arms. A lot of us seen the videos when their big ships would come and Palestinians would literally have open arms and feed them, give them clothes and all that stuff. Because to us Arabs, there's no such thing as color. Like in Islam, in the Quran, God talks about how there should be no difference between a black person and a white person. There should be no difference between a Jewish person and an Arab person. In our Quran, God pretty much says that he created us all differently so we all can come together and accept each other for who we are. Because truly, at the end of the day, we're all humans, We're not so different from each other. The only thing that makes us different is our experiences, you know, our bloodlines, where we come from, and our families and our ancestral ties and stuff like that. But truly, we're all the same. We really are.